We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, your neighbor over there, a bit bewildered, but he cares. He just doesn't know what to do. Join together and then there'll be two.
Welcome to Changing Our World. My name is Linda Weltner, and Linda Doe and I are sitting in front of the Knesset in Israel. Well, not really. Jon Stewart has this thing, you know, where he puts the green screen behind everybody and he has his foreign reporters always in front of the country.
And I believed it.
So we thought it would be nice. We're in front of the Knesset because the topic today is going to be peace in Israel. Two words that have not been spoken in the same phrase very often, peace in the Middle East. I did an interview with Linda Doe, who had just come back from a J Street trip to Israel last month. But the newspaper today is so exciting. It says, Kerry says goal is Mideast peace deal within 9 months. And as those who know her know, Lynn was the one who laid the groundwork for Kerry. If it hadn't been for her, none of this would have happened because Lynn met with the members of the Knesset, and she also met with the name of his first in command there.
Shteya, Mohammed Shteya.
And she whispered in their ear, when John Kerry comes, tell him I told you to agree with whatever anybody wants.
Well, Linda, I went to Israel with Kerry. That is Kerri, my daughter-in-law. When we went, we said to everyone, we are going to make peace in Israel. And when we went over there, we did go with J Street, and they were looking to introduce us to people who believe that a two-state solution can happen and that they wanted to make it happen. So when we were in the Knesset, for example, we met with about 16 different members of the Knesset. I must say, all of whom were in agreement with our position. And
Israelis, they were all Israelis?
The Knesset is the Israeli parliament.
Yeah.
It's the place where Israeli democracy is at work. It has a parliamentary system, so it's not like our system. It has a lot of different parties that form together to make a coalition. And the prime minister has to put together a coalition of various different parties that will support him.
So you met with these members of the Knesset.
And one of the most impressive, well, I was happy to see the extreme left wing support the position of peace in Israel and a two-state solution. But I was surprised when I met with one of the most religious parties, and he sat there in front of us and he sang a prayer, a Hebrew prayer that Jews all over the world say every day about peace. And he sang this prayer to our assembled group, and he said, peace is the most important thing. It's more important than land. It's more important than anything. And I am supporting peace, and I want to see it happen. That was very thrilling for me because there are some very ultra-religious Jews in Israel who believe that there should only be Jews in the entire area west of the Jordan River, or Judea and Samaria. And they are not supportive of the people, the settlers, etc. They are not supportive. I don't think they're going to be supportive of the John Kerry move.
J Street's basic goal is a two-state solution.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means that just as there is a country for people who are ethnically Jewish, there should be a country for people who are ethnically Palestinian, Arab Palestinians, and they should be able to have their own country, their own flag, their own language, and their own government. And this is what they want. And so when we met with Salam Fayyad, actually was the second most important person in the Palestinian Authority, but he resigned. So we met with him, and then we met with this person called Mohammed Shteya, who is in Washington today, having met with John Kerry and Tzipi Livni and Martin Indyk, the people who are negotiating for Israel, and the U.S. interpreters, the U.S. peacemakers,
Mediators.
who were mediators, who
Yeah.
were working together to make that happen. So he was there with them. I have his card. It was very exciting to be with him. Look, it's shiny.
This side is all in Arabic. We cannot read it, but this side says Dr. Mohammed Shteya from the Palestinian Economic Council for Development and Reconstruction.
He was a professor. He said that he was in Berlin and he crossed the checkpoint wall in Berlin, and soon after his visit there, the wall went down. And so too, he believes that peace can happen between Israel and Palestine.
Now, Lynn, what I don't understand is, don't we sort of have two states now? We've got Gaza, we've got the West Bank, and they have leaders and stuff. Are they not separate
But
states?
they're not their own country. They are truly an occupied area, occupied by the winners of the 1967, the Six-Day War, and so they do not have their own state.
So
No,
they're
not at all.
patrolled by Israeli soldiers?
Yes, there are certain
etc.?
very small areas that are under complete Palestinian Authority control. That would be the cities of Nablus, Ramallah, Jericho, and some other cities, which have an Arab Palestinian population. But then there are settlements that I would say pock the area in the West Bank, making it very difficult for the Palestinians to travel from one place to another without going around these settlements and the roads that lead to the settlements.
Because they're not allowed to drive on them.
No.
So one of the naughtiest things these people are going to have to agree with in the 9 months is what to do about the settlements.
Yes, and some of them will have to be, there's no question, but they cannot all remain. Some of them will have to be, the people will have to be removed from them, and they're going to have to settle in what is now Israel proper.
Say I don't want there to be a two-state solution. Why do you think it's good?
Well, it depends. If there was one state, so there would be everybody who's living in the area, right? In which the Arabs would outnumber the Jews, and then there wouldn't be an Israel. It would be a Palestinian state. I don't think that's what the people in the Knesset who are running things for Israel today want. They want their own country, Israel. The Palestinians want their own country, Palestine.
So if we had a one-state solution and we had more Palestinians than Israelis, in order to keep it a Jewish state, you'd have to take away their vote or in some way disenfranchise the Palestinians, right? Or
Right.
they would be in a majority vote.
They would be a majority and would...
And then you couldn't have a democracy, right? Because you've got a second-class
Right.
community within
The new state, whatever
new
it might
state.
be. That seems a little complicated to make a new state. There are Arab parties in the Knesset who represent the Arabs
in Israel. In
Yes,
Israel,
the
yeah.
Arab-Israeli population. And there are cities, Jaffa or Yafo, which they're cities that have a sizable Arab population in which people do live side by side. And they could, ultimately, what would happen if there was a Palestine? When 9 months from now, when John Kerry's wishes come true,
She's an optimist.
and the negotiations have resulted in a Palestine alongside an Israel, then some of the people, perhaps, some of the Arabs who live in Israel may decide to live in Palestine. Some, perhaps, I don't know.
Of the settlers could then move into the empty spaces.
I don't know how many people want to move.
Yeah.
You know, there's a great Palestinian diaspora all over the world right now.
Right.
Where do those people want to live? Do they want to stay on the Caribbean islands where they run grocery stores? Do they want to stay in South America, Argentina, and Chile? Or do they want to come back to their country, Palestine? Do they have a yearning for Palestine that is
Like the Jews yearning for
as the
Israel.
Jews have yearned for Israel for all these years? Do they want to go back? What do they want to do?
Okay, now let me tell you what I was surprised.
Right.
I am a member of J Street too. That's so you know which side I'm on. But anyway, I thought we had a minority opinion with this idea of a two-state solution. Then I opened the paper, since Kerry was appointed Secretary of State, and find out that is the United States position. That is the governmental position to state. So why have there been so many, I would say, rabid letters to the editor and fury at J Street saying that the two-state solution is somehow a anti-Semitic or a betrayal of our Jewish roots or what? I don't understand.
Well, I'm not sure that I understand either, but I do, as an American Jew who speaks to many American Jews, I have noticed that there is a narrative, if you will, in which we were picked on all these years and we are not giving up anything when we have established a home of our own now. And so they're very nervous about giving up any so-called, so their position that is now. I don't know, because it seems so narrow-minded. And the thing is, I am a believer in John Rawls' theory of justice, in which he says we should live our lives from behind the veil of ignorance so that we do not know what social condition we were born into. But when we work for a way of a policy, a policy decision, that we should work for it without knowing who we are, because we want it to be fair, because that is the theory of justice that will give us fairness. So I see people stuck in their narrative, stuck in blame, stuck in old stories. They did that first. I was a teacher. The kid in the back row threw the spitball first, and so he should be punished. That's what's going on. And now this is so wonderful, because it says in today's New York Times, a new opportunity is being created for all of us, said Tzipi Livni, talking to Saeb Erekat, the negotiator for the Palestine Authority, and we cannot afford to waste it. In other words, they're not going to spend time on blame and on what happened in the past. They're like, how do we go forward and reach a solution that gives us each a country that's viable?
So there's the Holocaust. All right, so that starts out with the idea that the Jews were so horribly victimized that reparations are deserved, which they are, and that the state of Israel is there to ensure that this never happen again, because now Jews have their own country and their own government and a place that will welcome Jews from all over the world who ever face anti-Semitism, all right? That was the idealism out of which the state was born, and that leads presently to a sense of entitlement in a way, which is, this is ours, God provided that we got it. So that would be one reason for not wanting change. But the second reason also, I think, is that some people do not believe that the Arabs are human, for one, that they're trustworthy, that they're anything but terrorists, and that they need to be punished for past behavior. Do you think?
Oh, you mean for the Intifada?
For all the intifadas, for all the explosions, for all the, bombings, and for every evil thing they've ever done.
That would be an extreme position, not to see the human face of the other. That would have to be a really extreme position that it's hard for me to understand people, reasonable humans taking.
I could put it on the other side, which is that the Arabs see the Israelis as human, having built these walls, having caused them to lose their jobs, having killed many more Palestinians than Israelis have died, et cetera, et cetera. If you took on a scale, I don't know whether they would measure out even or not, but nobody could lift them. There have been so many destructive acts on both sides.
Right.
And the Israelis started with the Arabs did this, and the Arabs started with the Israelis did this. And I think we both agree that's kind of a dead end.
And that's why this is such an exciting time that we get to see the negotiation, because the negotiation, there's been enough negotiation in the past that it's quite clear what are the most difficult issues. And it's quite clear that which issues need to be solved and how they need to be solved. So it's interesting, 9 months. That's what Kerry says. The goal is a deal within 9 months. That means it's like a gestation. So 9 months from now, what will happen will be there will be a deal that has been worked out. It's very hopeful.
I just wanted to read you this quote from the paper, too. It's by Saeb Erekat, the Palestinian negotiator. And this is what I think is the most hopeful of all. He said, "My world is no longer divided between pro-Israelis or pro-Arabs," he wrote recently. It is divided between those who are pro-peace and
Yes.
those who are against it. And that splits the moderate Arabs from the jihadists. So they are separating themselves from the extremists on their own side.
Right.
And I guess that's a model for, can the Israelis also separate themselves from the extremists? And the middles actually speak with words louder than the actions of the extremists.
Yes.
Lynn and I are now in Ramallah. We put on jetpacks and flew over the wall. One thing, that's what everybody needs is a jetpack. Then we wouldn't have to bother taking down the wall.
We had to go there by bus. And we had
Through
to
a
go
checkpoint.
Through a checkpoint. And we did stop on the way to see what the checkpoint was like and to see how horrendous the conditions in the checkpoint are, so that people, Palestinians, people on the West Bank who work in Israel or people in East Jerusalem have to go through it's like cages. And there are turnstiles, but the Israeli, not necessarily soldiers, they could be employees who are not soldiers, allow the turnstiles to turn or not to turn. So you can have a long line of people and someone has fallen asleep in charge of the turnstiles and they don't turn. So people are backed up. Of course, we didn't have any of that problem. As internationals, we traveled freely in a bus, checking with there just being a checkpoint security in between. But when we came to Ramallah, I was astonished at the bustling city and how exciting it was to be in that city. And the Palestinian flag for me, started to look friendly and started to look like the rights of the people to have their own place. So I saw that flag all over Ramallah. And my daughter-in-law, Carrie Lorigan, took this photograph as a reminder of how degrading it is to the Palestinians to be treated, woken up in the night, to be jailed without real charges against them, and how I can't help but think, and how dehumanizing it is for the Israeli soldiers who are 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and are being forced by the government policy to treat people inhumanely.
You know, it's interesting, when I think of the dispute, the conflict, I always identify with mothers. With the average Palestinian mother, with the average Jewish mother, I never identify with the soldiers or the extremists or anything. And just think about the ordinary people who are trying to raise their kids and get to the doctor and lead a decent life. And in that instance, those are the moderating forces who all they want is peace.
Yes. And not to bring back the negative, because I really only want to talk about the positive possibilities for peace. I did see a movie shown by a man in Hebron, which is a city on the West Bank, which is terrible, terrible situation. It's a ghost city because the Israeli army protects the settlers who are there. There's about 300 settlers there, and a yeshiva, a school for religious Israelis, and the Palestinians who live there are banned from the streets. The center of town is desolate. Where there used to be a marketplace is no longer. And I saw a film of soldiers grabbing grabbing a 12-year-old child, and the Palestinian mother is trying to hold on to the child, and there's a settler woman screaming, "He threw a rock, take him away, take him away." And the child is saying, I have tests tomorrow, wait and come back for me. And and I couldn't believe that this settler mother would not see the agony of the mother. Carrie Lorigan, my daughter-in-law, was crying. Her son is the age of this child that was being dragged away by the police. So, yes, women should be the moderating force, and it's outrageous when they are not.
How is this second state going to survive? I mean, do they have industry? Do they have jobs? What?
Oh, we met so many Palestinian entrepreneurs. That was very exciting. We got together with a group of about...
Oh my God, potential MBAs you met, right?
They were studying in London, or they were studying all different places. And they were studying, there was a woman who was the only Arab women beer crafter, and she wants to sell her beer. And she wants it to be easier to move her beer to Israel back and forth. And yet there are so many problems that if there was peace, it would be easier. And we met some people. We met a young man who is he's a builder, and he's building some little condos in Jericho. And then we went to a place called Rawabi, and Rawabi is, I think,
right. You saved your little calling cards. Yeah. It's a real estate investment company.
And it's going to be a city of 20,000 people that is being built on a mountaintop in the West Bank for middle-class people to live together, to have schools.
He's building a whole community.
Not this guy, not this little guy, but a very wealthy. And he's looking for money. He's getting money from Qatar and getting money, and possibly in a peace negotiation, they'll get money for that. And they were showing rooms, they were showing apartments and condominiums that people in the West Bank were looking at to see if they could buy into this new village.
So right now, if you have an entrepreneur who's a Palestinian, those checkpoints are not predictable, right? They close
because they could be crowded, and so there could be a long line.
And don't they
waiting.
Just close them without you able to find out whether you could go and find the checkpoints closed?
You could find a checkpoint closed. You could not be able to leave your village because there has been something happening that made the Israeli soldiers decide that the gate of a village would be closed so people can't leave. So they can't tell how long they're going to take to get from one place to another.
And so it's very hard to do business then, to bring your beer to Israel.
Right.
Or anything.
Because it would spoil.
Yeah, it would spoil. Same thing with vegetables, same thing with anything. Right. So if it was two states, all these entrepreneurs, then you would have treaties, right? Between them, so business could be.
Right now, Palestinians, I think I read somewhere, import more goods from Israel than Israelis use. Could that be? Well, there's definitely an economic advantage to have a stabilization of these two countries. They could be they're each other's best customers.
Right.
And so
that would put an end to the limiting of supplies that could get into those areas also, because right now there's a whole list of things that the Palestinians feel they need that the Israelis feel could be used for war or whatever that won't allow in.
This is an opening for a little different situation, which is there's Gaza. Gaza, which is to be part of the new Palestine, is separated by 25 miles at the closest point from the West Bank. And Gaza is on the Mediterranean, and Gaza is
ports?
No, because Israel does not allow that. They can fish only up to 3 miles, no farther. But it has these tunnels that come through Egypt, and all the problems with Egypt now has made the tunnel, the goods that go through the tunnels. But here's the problem. The Palestine Authority is in charge of, is the negotiating team for the Palestinians. Hamas won the election 10 years ago and is in charge of Gaza. So The question is, and Hamas is branded as a terrorist
Terrorist.
organization. They do not want to see Israel exist. But what Salam Fayyad said to me, and what Mohammed Shteya said to us, was when the Palestinian Authority negotiates a state called Palestine, a country called Palestine, they will be respected, they will be honored, as compared to Hamas, who's a big bunch of troublemakers. There's over 615 millionaires in Gaza, while other people are living a really difficult life. They're all Hamas party members who get the taxes, or whatever you call them, from the tunnels, from all the tunnel
the ones who are running
They're running the tunnels, they become millionaires, and what happens to everybody else?
Yeah.
So nobody really admires Hamas, and if the Palestine Authority, Fatah, which is basically the party called Fatah, they will be respected by the people of Gaza, and they will be able to work out an agreement. Now, how they get from one place to another, given the distance between Gaza and the West Bank, well, right now there are settlements which have roads that only go to the settlements, and they're protected on both sides. So I suppose there's going to have to be a road that goes from Gaza to the West Bank.
So everybody should say their prayers, whether they're in a Muslim house of worship or whether they're in a temple. Please let Carrie find all these people to be very flexible. This is a hard one.
It's very exciting, though. It's such an exciting time to think about there finally being peace in the Middle East, this situation that has gone on for so long, to end it with the help of of Obama and Kerry, and maybe the European Union, too. I don't know. They haven't gotten in on it yet, but perhaps it'll be wonderful.
Well, I just want to say one thing, which is you were perfectly entitled to say that these people told me. You don't have to say us, because he did tell you.
Yes.
So you can act like you had private, without saying private, by sense of omission.
Yes.
And by having spoken to you, I am only one step away from all of the big players.
Nobel Prize
in this.
winner, President Perez of Israel is a Nobel Prize winner. I never met a Nobel Prize winner before.
And I never met anyone who met a Nobel Prize winner, so we're both the winners. Let's say we come back in 9 months. If
Yes.
it's good news, if it's bad
baby.
news, we're going to
The
be
baby.
talking about Cambodia. But anyway, thanks for watching, and this is a time when you can be hopeful. So let's have a very nice evening, at least. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Linda. It really was nice talking with you formally.
Yes, this has been fun.
Cause the problems can all be solved with dedication and a little resolve. Obstacles slowly dissolve when we all just get involved. We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all